confusions on the matrix, on the call sign matrix. So just if you didn't get those questions right, hopefully you kind of understand it now. If you're still getting confused about, or if the answers don't make sense, then let us know. Either put a comment in here or a comment on your mark, and I can individually respond to you. But generally, it's just a case of look at the call sign matrix, look at what's written down, and you'll be able to work out the call signs. It's not always exactly what you think. It's what's written on the matrix. And just remember that that a section commander is going to end in Charlie, and a 2IC is going to end in Delta of a section. So if you think of Charlie and Delta fire team, it's the easiest way. Okay. Okay, so we've already looked at some of these last week in terms of speech technique, but we're going to just whiz through that and then look at spelling, figures, and their exceptions, and then we'll look at some abbreviations. Why do we do this? Because I think we covered this last week. The more concise you're on the radio, the shorter you transmit for, the less likely that the enemy is able to trace you, but also the more effective you are on the radio, the more you're trying to communicate information here, so that's quite important. So we looked at messages being planned. So you should plan them before you actually press the pressure. Before you transmit, you should know all the words that we're going to be saying. And you're obviously using noise cancelling microphones, which all our radios already have. We used RSVP, so rhythm, speed, volume, pitch. Okay, so just remember those. Those are the ones that commonly come up on the assessment as well. So just remember rhythm, speed, volume, pitch. I think we briefly looked at pro words. So they're words, procedural words with a defined meaning. We've already covered quite a lot of them. Things like Roger, out, radio check. We've already looked at those kind of things. So that's what we covered end of lesson last week. Hopefully that's kind of sparked all your memory from that. We've already talked about the phonetic alphabet way back. That was first lesson, and the cadets cover in their basic APC. And there's these things that you want to spell. But when would we spell normally? So it's necessary when the radio conditions prevent the clear reception of words. So when you're working in difficult, remember our radio check that we went through last week, when we're working in difficult conditions, we might want to spell things because then it's easier to understand. Okay. Also, if a word's unpronounceable, basically most places in Wales, although I fear that someone will pipe up and tell me that I shouldn't say that, if you can't pronounce something, or when you need to be extra careful, okay, when you need extra care to make sure that something has been understood, maybe the spelling is important and could mean that the message is misconstrued otherwise. So use the pro word. So there's another pro word to add to your list, which is I spell. And I spell makes everyone aware that you're going to spell something. So if the word is pronounceable, you need to say it before and after the spelling to help identify the word. For example, if I wanted to, I've got the pronounceable word rover, and I've got difficult conditions, so I want to make sure it's spelled. I would say rover, I spell Romeo, Oscar, Victor, Echo, Romeo, rover. So you can see how I've said rover first, then I've spelt it, and then I've said rover again. And that clarifies the bit that I'm actually spelling. So that's how we do a pronounceable word. Here's another example. So mouse. Mouse, I spell Mike, Oscar, uniform, Sierra, Echo, mouse. And here's an example of the word light. Light, I spell Lima, India, Golf, Hotel, Tango, light. So it's quite an easy syntax there. If we've got an unpronounceable word, then obviously we can't say the word before and after. So we just say I spell, and then we spell it. So in this example, we've got an unpronounceable word. Maybe it's some sort of an acronym or something complicated that you want to get over. There would be I spell Bravo, Sierra, Echo, Foxtrot, India, Romeo. So you just start with I spell and you spell it straight off. There's another one, I spell Hotel, Kilo, Charlie, Alpha, Sierra, Delta. So don't forget in your lessons when you're delivering this, you would have already taught them the PRR. So you could give them the PRRs, and even if you're teaching this at 2-star level, they'll already have the PRR. So you could maybe prior to this use this as a quick, put the PRRs together, a quick revision if they've come off from 1-star, and get them to do these. So I'm obviously giving all of these as an example to you guys, but interact with your class, get your class to deliver them. You could deliver them over the radios as well. It just makes it a little bit more interactive. So those are how we would spell a pronounceable and an unpronounceable word. But there are some exceptions. There are some things that you always say phonetically without the pro word. We've already covered one. Does anyone have any ideas what that might be? We've already covered one that you always say phonetically. Challenge for anyone. So, call signs. Yeah, people who can type the fastest. So, call signs, you're always going to say call signs phonetically. Okay. Grid references as well. Target indications, authentication, and authentication. We cover more at 3 and 4-star level with backbone and that kind of thing. And the date time group zone suffix, so the Zulu or the alpha. We always say it as Zulu or alpha. And then backcode encrypted text. So again, that's a more advanced thing, but that's what you do. So those are the main ones that those are the ones that you would always spell phonetically without the pro word I spell. So really, at the level we're at the moment, the main ones that you're going to get are call signs, grid references, target indications, and date-time group and zone suffixes. So let's move on to figures then. So there's rules for figures. So when radio conditions are satisfactory and there's no chance of confusion, figures may be spoken in normal speech. During difficult conditions, figures are spent digit by digit using the pro word figures. So in good condition, you would just say this as 1033. You would say this as 12,146. So, it's easier to understand. And if you go back to what we were talking about earlier with rhythm, it's easier to have the rhythm of normal speech by saying the words, or saying the figures, sorry, correctly. 535. If we're working in difficult conditions, though, then we're obviously going to have to say them out digit by digit. So this example, if you're working in difficult conditions, you'd say figures 1033. Figures 12000. So obviously that's going to take longer to transmit, but by breaking it up, it's more likely that the receiving station is going to fully understand the figures that you're transmitting. So basically, in good conditions, say it how you would say it if you're having a conversation face to face. If it was in difficult conditions, use the pro word figures, and it's good spot. I'm sure that will get repaired with the zeros without the slashes through. If it's in difficult conditions, then use the pro word figures and then say it digit by digit. Again, we've got exceptions for this. The following are always spoken digit by digit without the pro word figures, and it's the same thing. Call signs, grid references, target indications, except for hundreds and thousands. Authentication, formal messages, date time groups. That's all. So similar one. Again, the common ones you're already going to see are call signs, grid references, and formal messages with date time group. So mixed groups. So what if we've got letters and numbers together? And you treat them the same as if they were separate. So JSP 101, you would say JSP 101. ACP 44. AC 70816. But if it was in difficult conditions, then you split it up. So I spell Juliet, Sierra, Papa, figures 101. So don't forget to have those pro words in. I spell Alpha Charlie Papa, figures 44. I spell Alpha Charlie, figures 70816. So it's just keeping that clear. Does anyone have any questions? So in good conditions, just say it how you'd normally say it in speech. In difficult conditions, use those pro words to clarify that you're either spelling or you're saying figures. So, although they're originally designed to save time in writing, so you can write them down quicker, abbreviations can save time in speech too. And many abbreviations are so commonly used in normal speech that they're more familiar than their unabbreviated form. For example, APC. We say APC, you know, 3-star APC, all that kind of thing, instead of Army Proficiency Certificate. Seem to be unable to say today myself. So we can use radio abbreviations in radio transmissions, and it is encouraged, provided that they're quick and easier to use than the full word, and they're sufficiently well known to avoid any confusion. So using APC in terms of cadets and saying about, you know, APC 3-star and all that kind of thing makes sense. But if we had people that were non-cadets on the net, that wouldn't make any sense necessarily. And if the abbreviation has more than one meaning, the intent meaning is obvious. So back to the APC situation, it's obvious if I said APC 3-star that I'm talking about the Army Proficiency Syllabus and not an armoured personnel carrier. And it's just those things that you need to think about. And it goes back right to the beginning of this lesson, which is think about your message in your transmission before you make it. Write it down, and then you can consider these kind of things before you actually transmit. So, you know, in good conditions, as long as it does not cause confusion, abbreviations are spoken as in normal speech. So you'd say RV instead of I spell Romeo Victor, or ETA instead of I spell Echo Tango Alpha. But in difficult conditions, it's usually quicker to use the full word than waste time spelling the abbreviation. So, you know, dispatch rider is better than saying I spell Delta Romeo. Or reconnaissance is better than saying I spell Romeo Echo Charlie Charlie Echo. Keep going. Move a little bit quick on that. So it's just about being sensible. What is keeping your message as concise as possible, but also as clear as possible, and having an awareness of the receiving stations. Are they working? Can they hear you clearly? Are they, you know, good conditions, or are they difficult conditions? So abbreviations should only be spelt phonetically when it's easier and quicker, and spelling would be better understood than the full word or phrase. So again, another example here is it's easier to say I spell Charlie Bravo Romeo November instead of chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear. And it's easier to say I spell Papa Oscar Lima and more understandable instead of petrol, oil and lubricants. Normally we'd say, if it was good conditions, you'd just say POL, wouldn't you? So it's just about being sensible, thinking about that receiving station. How can you make sure your message gets across clearly? So writing stuff down, it's essential that all handwritten messages are legible. If you're handing a message off to your section commander or your platoon commander, they need to make sure they understand it. We think back to the history of comms lesson and the note from the Charge of the Light Brigade that's like barely legible, then it's no wonder that those kind of things can get confused. So we write all handwritten messages for transmission are written in capitals. And we may need to make sure that the characters are written correctly to avoid confusion. So remember the difference, the Zulus, the zeros with the slash through. So you should now be able to look at correct speech techniques, so RSVP, recall the rules for spelling, figures, and their exceptions, use abbreviations correctly, Does anyone have any questions? Good. A million notifications. Cool. So we've covered security, we've looked at accuracy, so it obviously makes sense to now move on to discipline. We're going to look at the need for discipline on a radio net and recall the rules that every operator must follow whilst using a radio to communicate. Why do we do this? Because you need to maintain coil, and also you need to make sure that you can transmit your messages effectively. And if there's not good discipline on the net, then the net falls apart and the enemy can steal a lot of information about coil. So we'll look at the rules, the alwayses and the nevers. So discipline is really fundamental to voice procedure and is generally the thing that cadets lack a little bit over the radio. So the discipline covers those rules for operating on the net. Control of the radio net is made easier with well-disciplined operators. So it's much easier for Zero, who controls the net, which is the controlling station, to make sure that communications flow effectively if all the operators are disciplined and follow the rules. And obviously poor discipline will reduce efficiency, accuracy and security of the net. It won't be as efficient because people might be transmitting over each other. It won't be accurate because people won't be using correct voice procedure. And the security won't be met because if people aren't using the correct voice procedure, those elements of coil won't be masked properly. Maybe they use real names. And it's the commander's responsibility to impose and maintain discipline on a radio net. The same as, you know, it's the commander's responsibility to make sure that your section are quiet on when they're out on patrol or working in the harbour area. You want to make sure that everyone is well disciplined there. It's exactly the same on the radio. And especially if the conditions are difficult, because efficiency has already deteriorated a little bit because it's difficult conditions, and it will go even more for their poor standards. And so it's a lot about the controlling station to make sure that that discipline is maintained. If you start letting things slip, then it will go downhill very rapidly. So the following rules are mandatory on all radio nets, where every station must always use correct voice procedure. And hopefully these are all pretty common sense to you guys, and they're just the kind of things that you want to drill home to your cadets. Maintain a constant listening watch. And what we mean by that is if you've been given the radio and you're a radio operator, you need to have it on and listening. So that doesn't mean you can take it off because it's uncomfortable or you want to have a chat with someone, or you always need to make sure that that radio is manned. And if you can't man it for whatever reason, you need to make sure that someone else is manning it, because you can never predict when those transmissions are going to happen. Ensure the frequency is correct. Got the wrong frequency, it's going to be pointless. Answer all calls without delay. Listen carefully before transmitting. And that's really important, because if you don't know what's going on with the net, you don't know when you can transmit. And because you don't want to be interrupting someone else's conversation. And sometimes it might be on the net that because of the conditions, you can only hear one half of the conversation. And if that's the case, you need to be well disciplined to realize that there might be someone else talking. So the more carefully you listen, the more likelihood you'll be able to kind of hear those things. Release the pressel promptly. So if you don't release the pressel, which is the button that you use to transmit with, the push to talk, some people call it, then you'll keep transmitting. And if you're still transmitting, then you're going to have problems, because no one else can transmit whilst you're transmitting. Which also includes the same thing, which is ensure the radio returns to receive. Okay, so if you're still transmitting, no one else can talk, and therefore the net's completely unable to operate. So those are our always rules, and now we're going to move on to our never rules. And again, all of these are really common sense for you guys, and I'm sure will be common sense for most of your cadets, but you just need to make sure you draw that in. So you should never violate radio silence. If radio silence has been imposed, it's been imposed for a reason, and it means that you shouldn't violate it. You don't have that authority to do that off your own back. Compromise classified information. So back to our security classifications lesson, you know, and making sure that you don't compromise it, remembering that your radios are an insecure means of communication on their own. Make unnecessary or unduly long transmissions. So the longer you transmit, the more the enemy can listen in, and also you're stopping everyone else from transmitting. Maybe someone has an urgent call, like a contact report that they need to get out, and the longer you transmit, the longer it's going to take, the longer the delay before they can transmit. Engage in operator chat or unofficial conversations, and this is the kind of common one, especially when people first get their radios, is that they want to, you know, just talk and chat about random things. And if you're chatting about what you had for dinner last night, then someone who has an important critical message might not be able to get through. Identify yourself or unit by name, so think about the core elements of COIL, so not giving that away. Speak faster than the station experiencing the worst reception can be expected to understand. So again, it's about being aware of everyone else on the net and adjusting your transmission so that everyone can understand and everyone can. Swear or lose your temper, and this one's actually quite a challenge sometimes, especially if you're doing more kind of complex VP and you mess it up. It can be tempting, and you've got to be really careful to make sure you stay calm on the net. Think about like an air traffic control person. They always sound, no matter what's happening, they always sound calm and control over the radio. And that's it. So you should now be able to understand the need for discipline on a radio net and recall the rules every operator must follow whilst using radio to communicate. So it's just really important that you consider them and you draw those into your cadets so they understand, you know, what they should and shouldn't do over the radio. Nothing rocket science on that one. Hopefully just all common sense. But does anyone have any questions for me on that one? Good. Okay. Oops, I won't do the final confirmation because you'll get that later. Cool. So what would normally be the next lesson within this? So we're on the 2-star level part of the course now. Is you'd get the 410. Well, sorry, the 710. Ooh, random numbers. The 710 radio, the Mercury, which is the VHF handheld radio. Same as the PRR. I'm not going to deliver the lesson here because I don't see any value of it. Because most of it really needs your hands on it. And I could show you pretty pictures and stuff and we could talk about the specifications, but actually that's better to be covered when the radio's in front of you and it's in your hands. But when you're delivering this, you should, you know, aim to deliver that lesson in the correct order, and then it gives you the chance of another radio set that you can use. You can use them in the lessons. They have training antennas, which means, you know, you're not got a massive antenna in your classroom. Use them. The more you can use them in these classes and the teaching, the better, because you don't want it to turn into a death by PowerPoint, which I appreciate is slightly hypocritical of me basically doing this online. But, you know, for your cadets, the more you can engage them, the more you can use them, the better. And the more you can get hands on the equipment, the better as well. So 1 star, we've really covered a very basic bit of voice procedure and kind of how to send a message to one person and that kind of thing. At 2 star, we're starting to kick it up a little bit of a notch. So by the end of this lesson, you will be able to describe the various types of call and recall the correct order of answering. So we're now looking at different ways of talking to people. And why? Because we need to be able to initiate a conversation with more than one station, and we need to give the appropriate responses at the correct time. So how can we talk to more than one person? So we look at our types of call and we look at our orders. So at 1 star level, previously, we looked at how you could make a call to a single station. So hello you, this is me, you know, hello one person, this is me, with a message. But what if you need to talk to more people? Well, there are 3 other types of call that we can use on the radio. There's the multiple call, a collective call, and a limited response. So we've already looked at a single call, and hopefully I've got enough people to be my demo. Ben, you're on the call, aren't you? And is Alex here and able to talk? He lost his voice last week.
Yeah, here and able to talk.
Good. Okay. Alex, you can be 0, and Ben, you can be Lima 10.
Cool.
So this is an example of the single call. We've covered this before.
Hello, Lima 10. This is 0. Move now. Over.
Lima 10. Roger. Out.
So nice and easy. 0 is talking to Lima 10. They're talking to one other call sign, and that is the format of that single call. So let's look at a multiple call now. So in this instance, multiple calls can be made by any station to 2 or more, but not all the stations on a net. So, because we'll cover how that works in a second. Each call sign is listed with a pause, as used between words, except between the last 2, which are separated by the word and, which sounds more complicated than it is. So have a look at the example and you'll see it should make total sense. You basically list all the call signs. So in this instance, lots of call signs. So Alex, can you be Charlie 10? Ben, you be Charlie 11. I'll be Charlie 12. And I'm assuming Dan's not on the call, is he? He's been called out. I'll have a volunteer if someone wants to be Charlie 13. Anyone want to put their hand up? Awkward silence for everyone. Go on, Justin. Right, Justin will do that. Cool. Okay, that's right.
Hello, Charlie. Wrong. Hello, Charlie 11, Charlie 12, and Charlie 13. This is Charlie 10. Sunrays O Group at 20:30 hours. Over.
Charlie 11. Roger. Out.
Charlie 12. Roger. Out.
Charlie 13. Roger. Out.
Cool. So you'll see that Charlie 10 wanted to communicate to 3 different call signs, so they just listed them. So hello Charlie 11, Charlie 12, and Charlie 13. So you just list them as a list. This is, and you carry on with the, hello you, this is me message. And because he's contacted 3 people or 3 call signs, they all reply with Roger. Well, so they start with their call sign, then Roger because they've got the message, and out because they don't need a response. So you can see how all 3 of them have come out with out because they're done. They've hung up the phone. They've each said, yeah, we've got that, and finished. Does that make sense to everyone? There are multiple calls. Yeah, so there is a specific order in which they'll respond, and we'll cover that in a minute. It's alphanumeric, so they will always go in the alphanumeric order, and we'll look at that in a little bit more depth in a minute. Okay, so let's look at collective calls. So collective call is a call by 2 or more call signs. Two more call signs, identified by a pre-designated collective call sign. So thinking about our elements of COIL, we're starting to mask a little bit, but also within security, accuracy, and discipline, we're keeping the transmission as short as we can by using collective call signs. So we can pre-agree a number of call signs that exist within a collective call before we even start, and that way everyone knows who's within that, and you don't have to list a load of call signs. And we use the pro word Charlie Charlie to do that. So we've got 4 again. Alex, if you can be 0, Ben, if you can be Sierra 10, I'll be Sierra 20, and I think James has just come on the call. James, can you be Victor 30?
Yeah, not a problem.
And the preface to this is that we have pre-agreed that Sierra 10, Sierra 20, and Sierra 30 are in a Charlie Charlie, are in a collective call.
Hello, Charlie 1. This is 0. Move to my location. Over.
Sierra 10, Roger, out.
Sierra 20, Roger, out.
Victor 30, Roger, out.
Cool. So you can see again. So we've all it's been pre-agreed that those 3 call signs were in Charlie Charlie 1. 0 sent the message, and it's easier than having to list those 3 call signs. But you could consider this as a bigger thing. You might have 10 call signs within there. So instead of listing all 10 call signs, you can just use a Charlie Charlie. You can pre-agree those things. Group people up to that you might need to all contact at the same time, and then they respond in the same way with their call sign Roger out. So similar to a multiple call, just you've pre-agreed who's in that group. But sometimes you don't want everyone to respond. If you did have a Charlie Charlie call sign with 10 people in it, do you want to have everyone come back to you? Because that increases the transmission time, and it stops other messages getting through, but it also decreases security, because now the enemy can start more easily building up a picture of who's in that net and all the different call signs. So what we could do is we could just nominate 1 or 2 stations only to answer. So if we want to give a message to a group of people, then we might just nominate a couple of stations to answer. And normally you would choose the station furthest away, or the ones experiencing the worst communications. So the ones that are in difficult conditions, or the ones that are furthest away from you, because they're the ones that are least likely to actually receive it. So you want to make sure that they've got it. If you've been working someone before, if you've been having a conversation with someone earlier, and the comms have been really good, then you don't need to get confirmation. You know that they've got good discipline, so they've got a good listening watch. They're listening to the radio, and you know they've got good comms, so you know they'll receive your message. You don't need to keep getting them to transmit unnecessarily. They can just listen, get the message, and go and enact whatever that message is. All right, so in this instance, it's the same Charlie Charlie call sign as earlier. So the same collective group, which is number 1, which contains Sierra 10, Sierra 20, and Victor 30. So in this instance, we'll keep our call signs as before. So Alex is 0, Ben is Sierra 10, me is Sierra 20, and James as Victor 30.
Hello, Charlie 1. This is 0. Move now. Victor 30, acknowledge. Over.
Victor 30, Roger, out.
So then you can see how that kind of works there. He's done a collective call to Charlie 1, but he's at the end of his message, before he's ended by using the word over, he's specified who he wants to acknowledge. He said Victor 30, acknowledge. Over. That means the only person I want to respond to this is Victor 30. I can assume that everyone else within that group has received the message, because they're well disciplined on the net. They're listening. They've got their constant listening watch. Does anyone have any questions about that? Sometimes that catches people out a little bit. Good. Anyone got any questions generally about the 4 different types of calls? This does come up on the assessment quite often. So it might be that you're asked to kind of fill in the words using options and dragging them into the right order. So remember so limited response is your 4th type of call. So you've got single calls, multiples, collective, and limited response. So don't forget your 2 new pro words that you've got out of this is Charlie Charlie, which is your pro word for a collective call, and acknowledge, which is your pro word for if you want a limited response. You only want a few people to respond. So as someone rightfully pointed out, how do we know what order we're going to answer? Well, there's always a specific order of answering for replies, and that means that everyone knows where they fit within the group. And so if there's multiple people that need to respond, everyone knows which order they need to respond in. And that stops people talking over each other or transmitting over each other and enables the net to function correctly. The first people who order are control stations. So control stations answer in their alphabetical order. So 0, 0 alpha, 0 bravo, 0 Charlie, etc., etc. And then all the other stations answer in alphanumeric sequence. So you alphabetize them in terms of their call sign indicator, then their numerical fixed call sign, and their suffix. Again, this sounds more complicated than maybe it actually is. Once you see it, it's a bit more clear. Someone was asking if I've got a PowerPoint, or has it gone off? You should be able to find it. If you haven't found it already, and if you do find it, you should pin it. It is there. I'll just pause for a second if someone's lost theirs. You should be able to find the presentation. So here's an example here in front of you of a number of call signs on the net, and they're not in the right order at the moment. So what would be good now is if you just spend 30 seconds having a look at it and maybe ordering it. So the first ones we were going to look at is you want to pick all your control stations out. So they're the ones that start with 0. So there's three in there. And then we're going to order them alphabetically. So 0 is going to come first, right at the top. If I remember correctly, this is it one at a time. Yeah. 0 comes right at the top. And then we are going to add 0 alpha and then 0 delta. So that's all of our control stations done. So we can knock them off the list. And now we're looking at all of the rest of our stations. So the first thing we're going to do is organize it alphabetically. So the golfs are first, and we can see that there are 2 golfs. There's golf 2-1 alpha and golf 1-0. So then we're going to do it numerically. So that'll be golf 1-0 is going to be the next one, followed by golf 2-1 alpha. And then we carry on going back to the suffixes. So Juliet 1-0, Romeo 1-0, and then finally Tango 1-0. So you can see there that we took our golfs, we then made sure they were numerically ordered, so alphanumeric ordering. So what if you miss your response? Maybe you've had a problem with your radio, maybe you were distracted, and you, or maybe you just forgot where you sit within the order of answering. At that point, you become what's called a defaulting station. And that means you didn't answer in the right time. And so what you need to do is, if you realize that's happened, and mistakes happen, and it almost always happens on a radio check, you wait until the end, you wait until everyone else has answered, and then you have a chance to respond. So defaulting stations must then answer in the correct sequence. So if there's more than one, you need to be aware of who else has missed it, and therefore have an idea of what order you've got to reorder yourselves to then respond in alpha numeric order again. So you allow 5 seconds, and that means if someone's messed up a little bit, they'll probably transmit before you. And you don't need to be using your 5 seconds on a watch, sort of count to 5 and then respond. And that gives, it decreases the chance that 2 people transmit at the same time. And then another 5 seconds should be left after the last station is answered before the next call is made. And that's just in case there's another person who's missed it who needs to key up. So basically, if you miss your spot, wait until the end, wait 5 seconds, and then key up. Sometimes you might hear a call without being certain of who it's for. And you shouldn't answer it until it's sent again and clearly understood. because it might be the enemy messing around, trying to deceive you. Think about interception analysis and deception. So it might be the enemy trying to deceive you. So you need to make sure that you understand the call sign. If only the call sign is not heard, then the call should be answered immediately, prefixing the answer with the pro word unknown station. So here's an example. So we've got Delta 11, that could be Alex, and Lima 42 can be Ben.
Hello, Lima 42. This is Delta 11. Move to my location. Over.
Unknown station, this is Lima 42. Say again, call sign. Over.
Delta 11. Over.
Lima 42. Roger, out.
So in this example, Delta 11 transmits the message, but for whatever reason, Lima 42 didn't hear the call sign. Maybe there was some short period of interference at that point, or maybe they were just a bit deaf and didn't quite hear it. So they heard the message itself, but they didn't hear the identification of the call sign. So they come up with unknown station, this is Lima 42, say again, call sign, over. So that's a way of them saying, I've got your message, but I don't actually know who you are, so can you confirm who you are? Delta 11 comes back with their call sign and nothing else, because that's all they needed to say. And then Lima 42 can reply, Roger, out. And that means, yeah, I understand your call sign and I've received your message, move to my location. Does that make sense? So we have rattled through that one, but you should now be able to explain the various types of calls. So single, multiple, collective, and limited response. Recall the correct order of answering. We look into this in a little bit more detail later. Interesting, that is missing the unknown stations and how to respond to them. Does anyone have any questions on that? So it might be worth, as you kind of fill in your notes and stuff, if there's any things that haven't quite sunk in, then you'll be able to watch the recording of this, pause maybe on the slides, just so you can kind of see the examples. I find the examples here can really help understand the format of the different types of calls and how you respond to things. Quite often that comes up in the assessments are things like things like ordering. So you might be given a set of call signs like in the slides, and you need to put them in the right order. So the question about if you're the station after station who's defaulted, how long do you wait to continue the response? So you'd wait 5 seconds. So you'd be hearing and you go along, you wait 5 seconds, there hasn't been a response. So then you would carry on, because you know they would have started by then. Because they haven't started, you wait that 5 seconds and then you go. And all these kind of things are the, no one's expecting people to be perfect at VP straight off. A lot of it is about planning your messages before you hit transmit. Especially if you're going to be doing different types of calls and stuff, you might want to think, oh yeah, but I need to work out which collective call can I use, who am I going to get to acknowledge, because who is the most distant station. And a lot of this comes with practice. So the more VP you can do with your cadets, the more little VP exercises, stuff you can set up. And even if that is you've pre-written messages and you kind of have a fake battle that might be happening, and you can all transmit those messages, the better they're going to get. The more used to they are going to be the syntax of those transmissions. The hello you, this is me, that kind of thing. So we're going to end today with no play. So this one's quite an important one for us, especially as adult instructors, because we really want to make sure we differentiate between exercise play and no play. So by the end of this lesson, you will be able to send a message that is not part of exercise traffic. And why? Because it's really important for us to be able to distinguish exercise traffic, what's our, our thing that's for our fieldcraft exercise versus an actual emergency. Alex, I've let Dan in. Ooh, tongue twisted today. So we'll look at the no play procedure. So in training, and especially within cadets, there's a need to differentiate between exercise play and events that require action outside the context of an exercise. So you might have a fieldcraft exercise you're running that you are carrying out a casevacs and things like that, and first aid scenarios. But you need to be able to differentiate between that and an actual first aid incident. Messages associated with real activity are just as exploitable as any other, and care must be taken regarding the security of information. We're doing current VP. We don't want to release information to our our enemies and our potential enemies, and therefore we need to make sure that we keep using good voice procedure. But also, it's not just about exploitability. Back to security, accuracy, and discipline. The accuracy and discipline is about getting those messages through and making sure they're understood. And if it's not part of the exercise, it probably means that that information that you're trying to transmit is really crucial. So you need to use good voice procedure to make sure that that information is transmitted effectively, efficiently, and is actually understood. So in order to highlight the difference between real and other messages, the pro word no play is used at the beginning and end of the message portion. So here's an example. Alex, you can be Mike 3-2, and Ben, you can be Juliet 1-4 Bravo.
Hello, Juliet 1-4 Bravo. This is Mike 3-2. No play. Urgent assistance required at my location. No play. Over.
Juliet 1-4 Bravo, Roger, out.
So you can see in this instance, the message that is not part of the exercise that needs to be transmitted is that Juliet 1-4 Bravo needs to come to Mike 3-2's location because they require urgent assistance. Maybe Juliet 1-4 Bravo is the ambulance or your safety vehicle, and so it's being called over. So you can see that the pro word no play is being used. It's being used before the message. Ooh, click the button by mistake. So it's being used before the message and at the end of the message. So it sandwiches the message itself with the pro word no play. Juliet 1-4 Bravo's received the message successfully, so they just come up with their call sign and then Roger and then out because there's no response required. As Dan's pointed out in the chat, this is one of the lessons that exists within the adult radio user course. So that course that you're going to be able to deliver once you're qualified as basic CIS instructors, you can teach your adults how to use the PRR and the 710 so they're effective operators. It's not teaching them to be instructors, but to operate the radio. And obviously this is a really important lesson so that they know how to use the radio in a no play situation. So here's another example. Ben, you can be Alpha 3-3, and Alex, you can be 0 Alpha.
Hello, 0 Alpha. This is Alpha 3-3. No play. Next serial delayed by approximately 15 minutes. No play. Over.
Zero Alpha. Roger, out.
So this is an example of a no play. It's not part of the exercise. A message that isn't a first aid incident. I think most people think no play is, if someone's been injured or something like that. And although that is an example of a no play, this is an example of a no play too, because for whatever reason, the next serial on the MEL has been delayed, so it's not part of the exercise. Hence the no play. either side. So you can see how no play sandwiches the message. Hopefully that will make sense for everyone. Does anyone have any questions? Cool. So you should be able to send messages that are not part of exercise traffic. So, but another meaty week of quite a lot of different things that I've introduced. Hopefully everything makes sense. I'm going to stop it at that point because I don't want it to be too much information overload. But I'm aware we've got through things quite quickly this week. So if anyone's got any questions or want to go over anything, then now's a really good time to ask any questions. You can either do it on the chat or if you can ask the question using audio. Good point, well made. Let me pull up what we have and haven't learned. I'm just going to mute my screen for a second whilst I do that. It's looking like we should cover the rest of the material next week. So what next week will be our last proper session. If you haven't completed the registration form, that's really important to do, because if you don't do that, then I don't know where you're from and I can't then make sure your local area know that you've done this bit and you only need the practical training. What I propose to do is run next week and then probably the week after run like a revision lesson or an hour where we can just, if anyone's got any questions or wants to go over anything, that you can do that. The PowerPoints you will get at the point at which you're fully qualified. So we don't give them out at the point at which you've got the qualification. You get access to all of the PowerPoints. You'll get a login. So if you want to refer back to anything, my best suggestion is to scroll back on these recordings, and you'll be able to see all the slides on that way. So I'm just going to pull up the matrix if you bear with me for a second. So you should see that I'm presenting back up again. Ready? So in the syllabus that you should be able to get on the Defence Gateway, you can actually look at all the different lessons that can be taught and how they fit within. So here first comes up the cadet syllabus, and this broadly there's a few tweaks, as we mentioned before, about history of comms and addition of some cyber stuff that will be coming in the future, and you'll be updated at the point at which that happens. But you can see that at a basic level, phonetic alphabet, date, time, groups, and it gives you an idea of the periods as well. 1-star security, COIL, we've done that. Security classifications, we've done that. History of comms, we've done. Semaphore and Morse, we've done. PRR, that's the one that you've still got to do. Basic messaging and SimpleNet. So you can see that that is a really nice, I think it's actually a 1-star, it's a really nice contained way of getting your cadets on the radios with a good firm foundation ready to go. If you can't see, you might need to just have a look at who's presenting. I can see it bottom right of my screen. I don't think I've got that one with pretty colours, Alex. If I have, I'm blind to it. And then a 2-star, which is kind of where we're sat at the moment. We've done security call signs, accuracy and discipline. So this is starting to bring more VP to make you more effective as a radio person. Basic radio net, establishing comms. Did we do basic? No. No play, calling and answering, corrections and repetitions. That's what we'll look at next week. The calling and answering and corrections and repetitions. No duff isn't used. No, it's all no play. No play is the only pro way to use. So that's looking at the cadets level. If we look within the CFAV syllabus, this is what I was mentioning about the adult radio user course, and this is what you'll be able to deliver as a basic signals instructor or CIS instructor in the future. So you can see that we give them an introduction to CIS, and then we give them the PRR, radio net and establishing comms. So what's a net? How do you establish comms? The 710 and simple messaging and no play. So it's enough to get them operating and effective on the radio, and you know, you can deliver that in 6 periods. So it's a fairly quick to deliver. Gary, to find the lesson recordings, you'll find them in the classwork. In the classwork section of the Google Classroom, there's both downloads and YouTube links as well. So looking at where we're at, we've covered pretty much the vast majority of this here, and there's just all the practical bits to do, and kind of really a chance for you guys to ask any questions and stuff. I see you're sending me attachments. I'm just going to stop presenting so I can get onto the right bit. So a recap of the matrix I will do shortly. Just gonna apology for a second. Cool, so I'll present again. Let's look at the resource guide first. So this gives you an idea of the all of the lessons and where they sit. So all those numbers, where they sit within the different qualifications. So you can see you cover everything that up to 2-star, and there's some extra bits that you'll find out when you do the practical stuff in terms of radios. So like on the 710, setting power levels and things like that are intrinsic and specific to your role as an instructor, and safety stuff, a bit more depth into safety stuff. So that's a good, and you know, to give you an idea of where you might want to stretch yourself in the future, you can see all of the other lessons that are covered within the intermediate to qualify you up so you can teach up to 4-star level. So we wanted to do a recap of security and call signs. So the call sign matrix, I might just give me 1 second, I think. So off the back of last week, just to prove how the team are really responsive to looking at improving things as which we go on, I'm gonna, Alex actually made a few tweaks to that lesson, and it might just be worth having a look at that presentation instead. So just bear with whilst I pull it up. And hopefully this might help explain the call sign matrix a little bit better. And if it does, it'd be really great to know, just so that we can look at improving things. There's another reason why we don't really give the PowerPoints out now. We give you because they are constantly being improved. Well, I think they're pretty good right now. Okay, so let's look back at the call sign matrix. So we've got our control stations at the top. So those are people in charge of the net. So you always have 0 as a control station, and your commander of that net. So in this instance, it's a mechanized infantry, company call signs. So your company commander is going to be up there, 0 Alpha. Then you have your substations. So they're going to be set in this instance. This is a company level net. So you're going to have 3 platoons, aren't you? You're going to have 1 platoon, 2 platoon, 3 platoon. So the highlighted area at the moment is 1 platoon. They're all going to start with 1. Cool. Mark, I will get to that in a second. So at the top of that, you can see the HQ element. That's the 1-0 element. And obviously within HQ, you've got multiple people. So you've got the commander of the platoon commander of one section. You can see them here. So they're going to be 1-0, and they're going to have Alpha at the end. So they're going to be 1-0 Alpha because they're the 1 platoon commander. If we then go down, we can see the 3 sections. So there's 3 sections in a platoon, and we can see that they're split up here. So 2 section is going to be is going to start with 1-2. Their call sign is going to start with 1-2. 2 section. And then within 2 section, there are obviously multiple things. There's a vehicle. So the vehicle, the 1 platoon, 2 section vehicle, is their call sign is going to be 1-2 Bravo. And your question was about the section commander or the section 2 IC. We'll look at the section commander first. So the section commander is always going to be in Charlie because they're Charlie fire team. Because you've got your Charlie and Delta fire team in your section. So each half of the section split up. The section commander has the Charlie fire team, and the 2 IC has the Delta fire team. So the 1 platoon is going to be a 2 section IC, so it's going to be 1 platoon, so it's going to be this column. 2 section, so it's going to be this box, and the IC is going to be in Charlie fire team. So they're going to be 1-2 Charlie. Then obviously we've got 2 platoon and 3 platoon. And then we've got more space for other things. So you can see that like the medics are in 1-4, the military transport squadrons in 2-4, and you've got space for all sorts of other bits and bobs. So you can see that's 1 platoon HQ with their sections, 2 platoon HQ, all the 2 platoon sections, 3 platoon HQ, all the 3 platoon sections. There's also scattered the randoms that sort of just get put in and fill the gaps. And you could say that part of this is to help our elements of coil, because if you mix them up a little bit, then it's going to stop the enemy from being able to work out exactly where they are. So I think one of the questions was like, what's the call sign of the company 2 IC? And you would assume that the company 2 IC would be 0 Bravo. But in this instance, it's not. That's why you need to look at the matrix and work out and find out where people are, because they're hidden right in the middle as 2-2 Alpha. It's a gap. It was something that's not otherwise put as something, so it's been popped in there. You know, the signals NCO is up in 2-1 Alpha. So you know the CSM is down here. There's 3-3 Alpha. So it's important to make sure that you look in depth at this to find out where those people actually are. So why would the 2 IC not be Alpha? So Kat, I'll answer Kat's question first, and I'll go back to Al's. Kat, so you would make this would get made by your control per exercise. So this is just an example of one. You know, most of the time in cadets, they're a lot more simple, but I have had ones that are I have this at least this many call signs in when I've done like a full annual camp comms net. So I've done it before where I've had the whole of annual camp. I've had, you know, my multiple companies. I've had a whole county level net running, and at which point these things do fill up quite quickly. And it might not be that all of them actually have a radio all the time, but they're all call signs that you can ask for. Because remember, you can't ask for someone as their name because that would give away your elements of coil. So you would expect whoever's running your net to build one. It might just be as simple as you know, a few boxes of this. The general ones that you wouldn't normally move around, you know, are things like the Charlies and the Deltas, just because that then lines up with your section Charlie fire team and Delta fire team. But generally, you know, as Dan says, it's kind of up to you. You can do what you like. Hopefully that clears things up a little bit with call sign matrices. Good. Oh, I like the new animation too, Alex. Actually, it's really helpful because it stops me from having just to move my mouse around. I think it makes it a lot more clear. Has anyone else got any other questions or feedback or anything they want to ask about anything at all? It doesn't have to just be call sign matrices. Damn, don't even. If not, oh, yeah, sorry, yes.
Sorry, no, I have a question actually. On the registration form,
Yeah.
My like local company wasn't on it, but
Okay.
it was put in afterwards. Can I go back and change it, or?
As long as you've put your correct P number in, that's the really important one, then it will line up eventually.
Okay.
We can fix it in the background.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
fine.
that's fine.
Main thing, yeah. Were you one of the ones where I missed?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. It's a copy and paste error.
It's fine. I was looking through it and I was thinking, oh, these are all English places. There's no Scottish one.
There are only two. I think there were two Scottish ones in there. And we were discussing this behind the scenes before I did it, because I was going to keep that as a free field text, so you just had to write it in. But then that becomes really difficult because, you know, you could have, for my example, like my sector is Middlesex and North West London, but some people write it NXNW, and then you wouldn't be able to tie them up. So it's like, no, it's got to be a drop-down box. And I took it from the location statement, but maybe failed to fully copy it. I'm sorry.
It's fine as long as it kind of tallies up at the end. Then
yeah, no, it will do. You won't get lost. The fact that you submitted it is the really important bit, because it's people who haven't submitted anything. If they haven't submitted the registration and they haven't submitted any of the assignments, then I know that they're not actively participating, and therefore they won't go on the list of people who have actually participated on the course and therefore only need the practical when we go back to face-to-face, whenever that might be.
Cool. Thank you very much.
It's all right. So I think there were a couple of other people who asked about they didn't quite have their P numbers and stuff, and yes, those individual cases just contact me when they do eventually get them and sort them out.
Hi Simon. Just my question was, I know you answered it, but it was about where I'm both CCF and ACF. I'm one of those outliers.
Yeah.
When I submitted it, I'd done that before you told me just to click one and fill in randomly.
What did you do then? Did you?
I just clicked other and just typed in both
fine.
ACF and CCF.
I will fix that. Don't worry. Again, it's, to be honest, the main thing is just to make sure that the correct brigade CIS advisor knows that there's someone in their area that they need to just do the practical with to get them fully qualified. So the main thing is, once this has all happened, that we don't lose track of you guys, so that we can make it nice and easy for you to then get fully qualified and then out and delivering CIS training to all your cadets. I want to try and make it as easy as possible. Where are you? London area?
No, I'm southeast.
Oh, I'm sorry. You'll yeah. So it's just making sure that you're within the right people's list so that they can actively organise the training for you to happen. I mean, also be vocal. You know, if you're having a problem, then do let me know, and I can chase it from my end as well later on. But this is yeah. Who knows when that's going to be?
Whenever we get back to face, so probably this time next year.
Oh, who knows? Who knows? This makes me really sad. One of the things I'm looking into, I'm not sure the best way of doing it, although there's nothing to stop you doing it over Zoom or over like Google Hangouts, or sorry, it's called Meet now, isn't it? Google Meet, is to set up, like, you could do VP stuff. This is a really good example of if everyone tries to talk at the same time, it just doesn't really work. So you could practice your comms and stuff over computers. There are geeky things that are basically radio emulators and stuff that could be used as well, kind of investigating. Who knows? I will warn you, next week we'll hopefully be quite carefully on time, because I've then got to go straight to another meeting, online meeting, to talk about using the Google Classroom environment for our cadets. So in our sector, because now we're no longer doing annual camp. We're looking at how we can deliver a decent bit of training, and since this platform seems to work quite well, we can do more of that. Yeah, Dan's replied to Russell. The other thing I've done, Russell, and it doesn't take too long, is I've got that in an Excel spreadsheet as well. If I might try and see if I can dig it out where it is, and if it is, I will upload it onto the Classroom environment, because it's just easy to fill in. Sue, we had a discussion about the worksheets behind the scenes. They're not editable in terms of like typing in like Word, although I think we're investigating how we could make the blanks be typable in PDF stuff. Generally, the way this is taught, you would have hard copies of those. Now, I appreciate that. You know, if you've got a printer, that would be my suggestion, because then you've got them physically. You're in my sector as well. We actually have full printouts, like 50 pages long printouts of all the workbooks as a booklet that we can sort out once this is all kind of calmed down. But so what I would suggest at the moment is, if you can, print them off and fill them out. If not, just make notes as we go along. And when we get back, I will send you over some so you can fill them in. Are really good for the cadets. It means that when you're delivering the training, they're not head down scribbling loads of words. They're following the lesson and they're making notes at the same time. So they're engaging, but they're not. You're not having to stop every 10 minutes for half an hour for them to write.
Okay, so the ones that you sent out today, they're not going to be assessed today like the previous ones that we've had. No.
So the only assessments which will imminently launch. So actually keep an eye on that. Are the things that I want back. So the bits that I want back are the things that you can complete online. They will launch literally any minute now. There's 4 of them.
Okay, I've just tried to get into them a minute ago and I couldn't get in, so they're not active yet.
No. So the ones that I uploaded earlier are just those are the worksheets which are for you to complete for yourself as your personal notes. The assessments will redirect you to a Google form thing where you put your email in and you select the right answers and you hit submit and it just does it all for you. You might have got caught up with some of the first few I did in such a way that they all closed. Those ones closed, which is why I asked a few people to submit some things manually. But all of these are all open, will be open and stay open, so you can submit them late. Although I prefer you didn't submit them within the time. Yeah, you should just be able to click them and do them. They will literally launch any second now. It says.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep, there. As we speak, I'm watching them change. So
all right,
they are coming out.
Lovely, thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Simon, with regards to the handouts,
Yes.
I know you were talking about them being like they're made into a booklet. Would that be on the system, or is that we have to take them off and make them into a booklet ourselves?
They exist as separate PDFs for each worksheet. You can stick them together. That's what I've done. I just sent them all off to printers and said, please, can you print me a booklet with all of these in? So yeah, that's my suggestion.
Simon, it's just a quick one on that.
Yep.
I put all of the worksheets to one of our admin clerks, and she prepared them into a series of booklets.
Yeah.
A4 folded in half. Does make for small writing, but it does make the cadets concentrate.
Yeah, the ones we've done them as full A4. If you've got a good clerk that will do that for you, then fantastic. Like that's the way to go about it. Otherwise, it is a lot of printing, but it's absolutely worth doing it to try and deliver that without the to get the cadets to write all from scratch. Just it's not constructive, is it really?
Just to say on that, Simon, there are various counties that have produced like a resource pack, a little booklet, and we actually, with consent of Lancashire ACF, took the Lancashire ACF one and took the Lancashire ACF off the front. And made it available. Alex will probably have a copy somewhere.
I can put up the London District one that I've got as well. I think we've all probably done very similar things, haven't we?
Yeah, the reason why I say is if there was one centrally done that gets updated regularly, it'll be easy to pull off and send to whatever printers we're using.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll Dan, I'll leave that on you. The challenge with all of them is that the resources are a little bit live. You know,
they're very live. The worksheets are updated probably once every 6 months, but it's not all of them. It'll be one or two. And what we don't want to do is update a single worksheet, then update a one-star booklet, then update a basic CIS instructor booklet. So we will only produce one master resource, which is the individual worksheets, because otherwise it introduces the chances of duplicating errors. And when we correct an error, we only want to correct it in one place instead of 8, 9 or 10 places.
I would say it's not too difficult to stitch them all together, and especially if you've got printers, they're generally quite good. Amusingly, all of the assignments have come out apart from one.
All I was going to say is I've got a meeting tomorrow with the training team. So if there are any queries like that, we'll take them away and we can feedback next week. But we've got a meeting tomorrow just to try and finalise our syllabus. The latest I've heard on the whole APC syllabus, because I'm seeing different things on social media, different things from different meetings that I go to. Essentially, the APC syllabus is still on track, apparently, for release in September, the revised APC syllabus, although they're conscious because of the lack of face-to-face training, etc., and not knowing when that's going to restart. The actual sort of go live date for it, that everybody will be expected to use it, will be 2021 September. But it will be, our syllabus will be updated and in that new framework by this September. And that does include, we're in the process of migrating to the DLE. We're not moving completely to the DLE until everything is sorted, but we're actively actually doing a load of trial work with the DLE at the moment. Alex has been doing that behind the scenes. We've got a few little tweaks we've asked regional command to make, and there's obviously they've got to load cadets into the DLE as well. But again, we're hopeful from sort of September time that if everything's done that we need done, then everything will be in the DLE. So we will have our own little bit, like all the other subjects, but we'll be in there. And obviously we're a little bit ahead because we've already been doing this for 5, 6, 7 years. So everything will be in there from a point of view of doing assessments from basic up to 4-star in exactly the same way. We still enroll people, but the access will be through through the DLE instead of under sort of directly under our control, which may have positives, it may have negatives, but hopefully it will push counties, RFCAs, and other units into getting suitable online platforms accessible, so that all cadets because all syllabuses in the APC syllabus are going online into the DLE eventually. And obviously, like people like EDV are already doing online stuff. We were already doing online stuff, but there is a big push on that, and there's a big push to get. We laugh about it a bit because we've seen what happened with the rollout of the broadband into all detachments, which may not have quite worked as it should have done. But we're being reassured that all of it, the counties, certain weekend training centres and establishments that cadets use will have access for this stuff. Obviously, you then need a computer, or you need you need some type of device to access it across the Wi-Fi. But that's sort of a bigger picture. But it's happening right from the top. So fingers crossed, it will support what we've been doing for years.
Cool. So apparently, there's more to this. Ooh. Oh.
Simon.
Yes.
Did you see my message about the assessments?
Yeah, you should find. So there's a uniqueness with how Google works, and that it changes a setting at the point at which they release. So as quickly as I possibly could turn that setting off, them, and you don't have to. You could have access. It's very odd. You should find you can get back onto them all now, and if you can't, you'd sometimes have to close your browser and reopen it, and then it works. Yes. Slight uniqueness to how very big works. All right, so looking at this new PowerPoint, this is literally brand new.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's all right. So if we look, so in this example, the question is, you want to find.
If you go back to the previous one, it purposely split out into keep going.
I'm going backwards.
Yeah, and stop. Oh, yeah. So one click to show you the control stations. Now we're a company, so generally one platoon are click there. Generally 2 platoon are click there. 3 platoon are there, and there's room for everything else there. So within 1 platoon, we've got the HQ and the 3 sections. Within 2 platoon, we've got the HQ and the 3 sections, and HQ and 3 sections. So it splits it down like that, and gives you the opportunity to go. You'll see that the HQs are all the same. The sections are all the same, apart from a few weird ones that come up there.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the weird ones, the ones that are added in. And then if you go on to the next slide, it pauses there so you can point out bits. So it then gives you some examples. So, what's this? 1 platoon. If you do another click.
Yeah.
1 platoon, 3 sections. So where would we find that? Click. That would be in 1 platoon. What part of 1 platoon? 3 section. And then we want the signaller. Where's that in that box? It's that one. All right. And then, so it's call sign 1, 3. Next one, 3 platoon. So that comes up in 3 platoon. 2 section is that box of 3 platoon, and then the IC is that one. So the call sign is 3-2 Charlie, etc. And I think I've done 4 or 5 of those. I've done 5, I think. Hopefully covering weird ones.
Yeah.
So, there's a weird one.
Yeah.
It's somewhere in the big blue box. But hopefully that's a bit better and much more guided for people.
To answer your question, John, yes, I know they were, and I know who they are, and it's not a bad thing. There's a security thing on Google, but I know who they are.
Thank you. My fears are allayed.
Yeah. And frustratingly, it's non-trivial to fix. Basically, you've got to make them leave the whole. I've got to boot them out the whole classroom and get them to change the security setting on their Google account and then rejoin. And I just was like, I don't want them to lose all their marks and all their work and stuff. So at this point, we've gone a little bit down the garden path. But I know in the future, if it happens, I had to do it straight away. Yeah. The resource for Google Classroom is actually really good. The Google Help stuff is really helpful. So I've done quite a lot of reading about best ways of using it. So there are a few unique things. So the problem with all the assignments is because the way you import, it's designed for a school where everyone has, an @school.com email address. So everyone's within the same domain. And because none of you are in my domain, because none of you have @jpsltech.co.uk emails, it gets a little bit confused. So when it first puts the assignment out, it only lets people at JPSL Tech do the assignment, because it assumes that all the students would be within the same email address as me, and I have to go in and then turn a thing off that says only accept responses from people within your domain, and then it all works magically. There's that, and there's the other slight issue is, again, because it's only me, I'm the only one who can accept people into these meets. So even though Dan and Alex and Ben are all set as teachers, they can see your marks, they can help mark you, they can reply to your private comments, all that kind of stuff. Because it's my meeting, this meeting here is only me that can allow people into this meeting. They can boot people out and they can mute people, but only I can do the actual letting in. But actually, it's better for it to be too kind of secure, especially if we end up using this with connects and stuff. Then we don't want it to be exploitable. So
cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I do like it. I hope you guys are getting along with it, with the assignments and the handouts and all that kind of stuff. And it seems to work quite well. It's quite nice. Yeah. Better than Zoom, and then me sort of emailing stuff out all the time, I think. Cool. Right, I'm going to call it a day. But if you've got any more questions or anything comes up, then drop a note during the week, and if not, I'll see you on Wednesday. Hopefully. Maybe.